As we celebrate the 50th anniversary involving the fight between Muhammad Ali and George Chuvalo from March the 29th of 1966, we welcome in the founder and promoter with Top Rank, the man who promoted that fight back at Maple Leaf Gardens. He is Bob Arum. Bob, I wanted to ask you first, being that that was the first fight that you promoted, is there a specific memory that still stands out from Chuvalo and Ali in their first fight?
Not only the first fight that I ever promoted, the first fight that I ever attended. And for me, yeah, the memory is as if it happened a week ago. It was a memorable time. It was a crazy time in the history of my country, the United States. Ali had said that he wouldn't go in the army. We were thrown out of the city of Chicago. We couldn't get a site anyplace in the United States. We went to Montreal, and the mayor of Montreal was intimidated by the American Legion, and so he didn't allow us to do the fight in Montreal. And finally, a courageous man of Toronto, Harold Ballard, the part owner of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Maple Leaf Garden, said, "Come to Toronto and we'll do the fight." And he was a man of his word. And that's how Ali and Chuvalo fought for the heavyweight championship of the world.
Now, with all of the controversy that was leading up to the fight, was there ever a point where you did consider pulling the plug on the bout?
When we were thrown out of Montreal, it was over. It was finished until I got this call from Harold Ballard, which sent me to Toronto. But even in Toronto, it wasn't finished. Harold Ballard's partner, Conn Smythe, refused to allow Ali to fight in the building. Harold Ballard had to buy Smythe out of the team and the arena. Ernie Terrell, who was supposed to be the opponent for Ali, pulled out of the fight because the revenue was going to be very small, since the American Legion was going to boycott and picket closed-circuit locations in the United States. George Chuvalo came aboard 17 days before the fight, but it wasn't even over then, because the Ontario Parliament, in its wisdom, decided to take a vote to see if they would allow this fight to be held in Toronto. And by one vote, we prevailed, and the fight was on. So when people talk to me about the difficulty of over 50 years of promoting fights, I say it's all been a piece of cake, because this first promotion was by far the most difficult of my entire career.
Before the fight, did you ever think that you'd be celebrating this fight 50 years later?
No, quite frankly, I, didn't think in those terms. I would have been just happy to be around 50 years after that fight, because I'm now somebody in their 80s. But not only am I around, I'm still promoting fights. I have a major fight taking place in Las Vegas on April 9th between Manny Pacquiao and Timothy Bradley, with great fighters on the card. I love promoting boxing. I didn't know 50 years ago how I would find it, but it's become my career work.
As we look at a fight you are about to promote involving Manny Pacquiao, when he fights Timothy Bradley in the rematch, do you feel that that will be Pacquiao's last fight?
I'm a little skeptical when a fighter tells me he's retired. The last fighter who told me he was retiring, he told it to me in a press conference, and he called me up a half hour later to unretire. So, fighters really, it's hard for them to let go. Do I think this is Manny's last fight? It could very well be his last fight, but I'm not advertising it as such. I still think that there's some more fight left in Manny, and if he has a good outing with Bradley, I think we may see him back in the ring in some more fights in the next couple of years.
And Bob, as you're always looking for your next star, who are some of the people under the Top Rank banner that you see one day replacing Manny Pacquiao as Top Rank's biggest star?
We have loaded this card, Pacquiao and Bradley, with 3 top Hispanic fighters. I call it the No Trump undercard because they're all Hispanics and they're all splendid young men, and it's an answer to Trump's bigotry. But Gilberto Ramirez is fighting for the World Championship in the super middleweight division against Arthur Abraham of Germany. Oscar Valdez, 2-time Mexican Olympian, #1 contenders, fighting up against former champion Gradovich, and Jose Ramirez, whose father is a farm worker in the Central Valley of California, and the kid who picked peppers in the field when he was 14 and 15 years old and was a member of the U.S. Olympic team, undefeated, will be fighting his first 10-round fights. Those are 3 future stars. There's Felix Verdeo, the Puerto Rican sensation, could very well be the next big thing. And of course, there's Terence Crawford, the junior welterweight champion of the world, undefeated. Many consider him to be the best fighter in boxing. He's going to be a major, major star.
And how about an update on your potential fight with Donald Trump?
I've never, again, I'm a man of peace. I'm not looking to get in the ring with Mr. Trump or anybody else, but I think he's so dangerous for this country and for the world that if I had to, I'd be prepared to meet him in the ring in order to silence him once and for all.
With the MMA bill recently passing in New York City, the UFC is going to likely run an event at Madison Square Garden. What is it about that particular venue that is so special when it comes to combat sports?
There's something about the Garden. Now, I'm a New Yorker, and at times I said, maybe it's because I was born and raised in New York. But listen, I've lived now a good part of my life out west in Nevada, in Las Vegas, and in Los Angeles. But I still look back at Madison Square Garden as being iconic. And I think that the UFC will be thrilled when they put their first event on in Madison Square Garden. It's something special. For me, it's as special as Yankee Stadium is. There's something about that ballpark that is special, and I was privileged a couple of years ago to promote a boxing match in the new Yankee Stadium. It was the first boxing match in the new Yankee Stadium, and I also promoted the last boxing match, Ali and Kenny Norton, in the old Yankee Stadium. So Madison Square Garden, where I've promoted some of my biggest fights, is a special place. So is Yankee Stadium. And the fact is, really, so is the city of New York.
Bob, I'm sure you've been following some of the mixed martial arts news that's been going on. Dana White recently criticized Holly Holm and her manager for not waiting for the big elusive fight, and that being a rematch with Ronda Rousey. As a promoter yourself, have you ever encountered problems like that with any of your fighters, wanting to wait for the bigger fight even though they want to fight immediately?
Yeah, of course, that happens all the time. Sometimes the fighters decide they want to go ahead with a fight that's not a big money fight with a disastrous result. I remember John Tate getting knocked out in the last round by Mike Weaver. Upsets can happen all the time in boxing and in other sports. But fighters really, if they have confidence in themselves, believe they can beat anybody, and sometimes it's at the cost of a big fight not happening.
All right, Bob, I want to thank you very much for joining us, reminiscing, and with some updates as well. Thank you.
My pleasure talking to you.